Well, thanks for joining us again today, Nathan. We really appreciate having you down here. Any chance you get to come to Atlantic Canada and have conversations with the little folk?
Definitely not little folk, but thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
No, it's great to see you. I got a whole bunch of questions that we've got lined up for you to kind of help drive some value to the dealer base that we deal with. So really, we want to just, for anyone who doesn't know you and know your position with Resideo, we want to jump into some of your experience and history and how you got started in the industry.
Sure, yeah. It was a little bit by chance. I was in the IT industry. I spent about 10 years in IT sales, and a recruiter reached out to me and wanted to talk to me about Honeywell at the time, which soon became Resideo, and talked to them. I was really intrigued by kind of the convergence of smart home and security were kind of coming together at the time, and that was interesting to me. So a bunch of conversations later, ended up joining Honeywell, which again soon became Resideo. So yeah, I'm the district manager for Resideo, covering the security portfolio for Ontario, Manitoba, and Atlantic Canada.
Okay, no, that's really good. And I mean, we go way back when I was an integrator. I dealt with you on a number of times, and we've had some good conversations. And that's why I thought it would be good to have you in today, because when I was kind of learning the platform for Resideo, you were a great resource and gave me a lot of information and knowledge on the proper way to market Resideo and the proper way to understand my clientele. So hopefully we can delve into some of that during this session so that we can help people understand just how to use Resideo and that platform for their clientele to help their RMR generation and get that kind of piece moving in a better direction and see if it's a good fit for them.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you got value, and I was able to help you in that role, and happy to share it with others as well.
Yeah, so you've been in the space for a good long time now, so not to date you or anything, but at this point, I mean, it's been over a decade now that you've been with Resideo, right?
It's actually only about 7 years. It feels maybe sometimes like it's longer, but I feel like I'm still a relative somewhat of a newbie to the security industry. There's lots of guys that have been around for.
Well, you don't come off that way, so that's really good. That like when someone talks to you, they've expected that you've been around for a lot longer than that. Yeah. So that's really good.
That's good.
That's a good thing.
No, I'm glad people perceive that I'm experienced, that I know what I'm talking about.
As long as that perception is there. What gets you motivated about what you're doing with this district management type role? Because it's not directly sales necessarily, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I wear a lot of different hats, different days. I mean, some days it's sales, some days it's more technical in nature. And I kind of pride myself on trying to be at least, moderately technical, and can, do some small technical trainings and things like that. So just, it really changes day by day, which is, I guess, to your question, kind of what intrigues me about the role. It's no days the same, and a lot of different roles and responsibilities. I think what I really like about it is, working with small business owners, you're getting right to the decision maker. You're working with them collaboratively on, how they can help grow their businesses using your products. And it's also always changing. This industry is, there's always new products and solutions, and
no 2 days the same, and it's very fast paced. So I really agree. It's one of the things I miss about being an integrator, is kind of seeing the evolution of technology for the installation component and how you can kind of make two pieces work together. I still get a lot of that excitement on the monitoring side to see kind of where it's going, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and that's also something that's I find is really great about Resideo, because we offer both the hardware solutions, the alarm panels, the cameras, things like that, as well as the back-end infrastructure with our AlarmNet platform, which then obviously ties into the monitoring station and kind of the RMR component. It's not a simple, when I'm talking to integrators, it's not a simple, selling you this security panel or this motion sensor. There's also the back-end side of things, which, that's really, the lifeblood of the industry at the end of the day. Most of our dealers are trying to generate RMR and consistent recurring revenue.
And make it all work together on one platform. Yeah, that's actually an interesting point, because Resideo is one of the few companies that you look at and you don't say, that's a hardware company that, they also offer software, or that's a software company and the hardware is a little bit lacking. It's very balanced, I find.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of they go hand in hand, right? I mean, if you're putting in one of our panels, typically you're obviously using AlarmNet to onboard that, and the end user's using our Total Connect platform. So, I think that's a unique value proposition that we offer to our integrators and dealers for sure.
Who's a good fit for that software and hardware platform? Like, is it really residential to large commercial, industrial? Like, who benefits best for that kind of niche with that platform?
Yeah, so it's definitely residential. That's been a strong market for us, as well as the small medium business segment as well. I mean, we've made some investments there, and we've launched some new products recently with our Vista H3, and we've got a new line of cameras coming later this year called the CX4 series, which we announced at ISC West. So, we're kind of expanding that SMB offering.
A lot of the people tuning into this type of segment aren't going to have attended that type of a platform. So can you touch on that series at all? Do you have any insights you can share on what's coming with that?
Yeah, I won't go too far into the weeds on that, but it's 3 new cameras, a bullet, a turret, and a dome camera with SD card recording for 24/7 recording, as well as backup to the cloud. So we're trying to kind of give integrators the best of both worlds, where they get that continuous recording, so they have assurance that they have all the events captured, but at the same time they've got that cloud backup still
for the event clips.
Yeah.
Okay, so still ease of use and okay, so you're doing the analytics thing and the notifications based on certain events and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's really good.
People, animals, vehicles, and I'm missing one. People, animals, vehicles, and packages.
So. Packages, that's right. Okay. So is that to tie in with the previous kind of First Alert stuff, or is this somewhat different?
Yeah, these will be branded First Alert as well. I think the niche really there is for the end user. Maybe it's a small convenience store or professional practice or quick service restaurant, where they want that integrated intrusion and video all in one platform. They can manage their users and their cameras, their alarm system, all from a single interface, being Total Connect.
Okay, no, that's great actually. So it's right now a lot of the platform might be geared a bit more towards residential, where that's been kind of your more consistent clientele over time, but there's definitely a place for it in small commercial as well.
Yeah, I mean, even today we do a huge portion of our business in the commercial segment. I mean, people, I think they see, like, let's say our Pro Series platform, and they think of it as residential, but we still sell a lot of product into the commercial segment.
Yeah, a lot of the dealers that I talk to kind of in Atlantic Canada, most of them seem to target commercial, I find. Like, that seems to be what the more sought after clientele would be. Do you find that, like, kind of district manager, you'd know best, but do you have a strong foothold here in Atlantic Canada?
Yeah, I think we have a good set of dealers in this market, and it's growing for us.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really good. And I mean, it's from what I've seen back when I was an integrator, it was priced very competitively, but without having a lot of those options stripped out of it. Like it was a very modular kind of setup that you could buy what you need, whether you needed to communicate over just broadband or if you needed the cell backup or whatever, Z-Wave, like whatever you want to integrate into that, you can kind of pick and choose. And I always kind of gave that example of when you're it's not that Resideo is a lesser product than some of the things that it competes with. It's just that they give you the option for the base model. So you can choose to have it as a lower upfront cost, but you can still modularly scale it to that same kind of quality platform as you could with some of the main competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, let's be honest, like at the end of the day, every consumer is different, whether it's residential or commercial, and they all have different needs. They all want to communicate in different ways in terms of either cellular or internet. Some of them want all the bells and whistles with Z-Wave and home automation, whereas other people just want, a core security system to take
just
care of their family or their business.
Give me an app and that's it.
Yeah. So with Pro Series, our all-in-one platform, as well as our new Vista H3, they're really modular in nature, so you can design a system to suit your specific customers. And
yeah, I really like that, because I mean, these small dealers too, like they design every system individually. It makes sense that they have more opportunity to control those variables than less. So that most manufacturers don't give them that choice. You buy this, it's going to include this, and this, and it costs X dollars, and that's the way that it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I like the way we go to market, and I think most of our dealers appreciate the fact that they have some flexibility in terms of how they design their systems, and also, just for future proofing as well. We know right now the 3G sunset's coming up in Canada shortly, and that's a big deal. That's a lot of time and effort spent by dealers going out there and replacing systems. So by making it modular, it makes it a lot easier for
pop out the old cell, exactly. Pop in the new cell, and it's compatible, and it's just going to work. No, that's really good. Very handy.
We would all like cellular technology to last forever and never change, but we've gone through 2G, 3G's happening now, and I'm sure at some point down the road LTE will go away as well. So.
Yeah. We'll be looking at 6G, 7G. Grow a third arm. The challenges that you face in the market, though, is there anything that stands out that you find is a challenge that you're facing in Atlantic Canada?
I don't think the challenges in Atlantic Canada are necessarily unique to what we experience anywhere else. Obviously, it's a competitive market, and we're competing every day against some of the other players out there. But we hold our own and do well. So I don't think anything specific in Atlantic Canada.
No dealers have come forward with anything specific that they're experiencing challenges with either, not necessarily to a Resideo product, but...
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's many challenges that I think our dealers face. I mean, I think some of the more obvious ones are, getting technicians is always hard. That's the one huge. I consistently hear from dealers across the country when I meet with them. They're always looking for good quality technicians, and it's tough. I don't think... I can certainly say when I was, 5 years old, I didn't wake up and say, what, Mom, I want to be a sales rep in the security industry when I grew up.
There's not a lot of advertising, right?
No, yeah. I think most of us kind of end up in this industry somewhat, by chance. Maybe we have a friend or a family member that got in there, or we just kind of stumbled into it in one way or another. So I don't think kids coming out of school are necessarily thinking of it as a, first career option for them. So that just makes it a little bit harder to recruit technical people, because there's lots of other,
there's a ton of more better known avenues, not necessarily better in general, but just better known.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think it's a great industry, and there's lots of opportunity, and if you're technical in nature, there's lots of different ways you can go and lots of things to learn. But just getting the word out is a challenge for sure. Any
insights on how we could kind of tackle that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think organizations like CANASA, are trying to, work with colleges and things like that. And then I think it's also incumbent on all of us in the industry to, talk to that next generation. I know CANASA is working on a next generation council and doing some events around that. So I think it's a team effort. We all got to kind of work together to keep speaking positively about our industry to the next generation.
Can you tell me anything about that Next Generation Council and what that's really about?
I'm not on it myself, but I think it's really just a council of people from across the country that are already part of CANASA, that are kind of coming together and looking at different ways to
kind of recruit for the next generation.
Yeah, talk to colleges, job fairs. I don't think it's a relatively new council, and I don't want to speak for them, but
I just a general purpose. So it's made up of people who are already members of CANASA, and they have kind of a directive in that group that they're trying to find ways that they can get the word out about the industry and see how best to kind of advertise that to the next generation is kind of the goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely needed. Needed. That when I was an integrator and I would tell people what it is that I do, it's kind of funny because there's cameras and alarms and access control and intercoms everywhere.
Yep.
But people never stop and think, well, who's putting them in?
No, exactly. Well, even when I first joined, I knew who Honeywell was, because obviously I'd seen Honeywell thermostats and things like that,
sure.
and the brand, but frankly I didn't even know that Honeywell was in the security industry before I joined it.
Right.
I don't think most of the other main brands that we all know within the industry are really well recognized.
No, not outside the industry. Exactly. Yeah. Honeywell's probably one of the very few that have a wide enough portfolio, because they have non-security platforms and DIY platforms as well for just home automation and stuff like that. So it's kind of a different kind of architecture, which is interesting.
I think the other, less obvious one that some of our dealers face is just change in general. And we were kind of talking about this on the side before, but I think the industry's, things are obviously always changing, and that's challenging for dealers to adapt, both from a technology and then, we're seeing like even just demographics, the buyer, especially in the residential space, has really changed. We have more, millennials, let's say, that are homeowners now, and I think they kind of approach security a little bit differently. They do their research ahead of time. They have a lot of preconceived ideas before, let's say, an integrator or a dealer comes into their house. So they're not necessarily looking for the dealer to, tell them everything they need and say, you need this, this, and this. They kind of have an idea of what they want already. And I think it means you have to take a little bit of a different approach. If you go in there and tell the millennial, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, you need this, this, and this, you're probably not going to close that sale. Right. Whereas that's, really that previous generation, that's what they were looking for. They were counting on that integrator to come in there and be the expert and tell them exactly what they needed to secure the house. So I think things like that, and then just technology changing obviously as well.
That's a really interesting perspective, because again, like you're saying, like years ago, door-to-door knocking and things like that would be kind of the prime mover that would close a lot more deals. You just show up and explain who it is that you are and what you're doing and the benefits they'll receive, and a lot of times they'd be like, well, yeah, I don't want crime, sure, you know. And it's not that it was that easy by any means, but just the total understanding from the buyer is completely different. Now you're getting called there and it's like, well, I just want a camera out front that's going to alert me on my phone, and I want a video doorbell, and I don't really care about motion detectors. I just want a contact on the front and back door, and I don't want it monitored.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few different things to unpack on that. Like, I think video is becoming a bigger and bigger component of security, and it's also that, the perception that maybe the younger generation have is video is security. That's what they're expecting in terms of a security solution for their house. It's not, they don't think about intrusion or other, areas of protection. So that does require maybe a little bit of education. Yeah,
even on the environmental side, because that's always the forgotten component. And then somebody's house burns down, or there's a flood in the basement, and then suddenly it's, well, why didn't I have that? I didn't know you guys do that.
Yeah. I mean, life safety is, you're 100% right. I think it often gets forgotten, and I don't think many people, if you walk into their house and said, would you say that, security from an intrusion standpoint is as important as life safety and protecting your family? Nobody's going to tell you that protecting their family from fire and carbon monoxide and things like that is not important.
Right.
But it's not what we lead with. It's not what usually makes headlines. So
yeah, and it's not usually the prime reason they're calling you, because typically on the residential side, it's navigated a little bit differently than commercial. Commercial, you typically get called there and nothing's happened yet. It's either we're new to this space and we know we need security, or generally like we need to have it for insurance, or like they've got reasons ahead of time. It's not necessarily like a cause and effect relationship where we were broken into last night. So a lot of times it is too, but it's not the prime mover. But with residential, if you're getting called there, it's usually because something almost happened or did happen or happened to somebody that they know.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like, especially on the residential side, security is a life events type business, right? So to your point, some there's been a break-in, there's been a fire, maybe, hopefully not, but something like that, or there's been they've moved to a new house and they had security in the old place, new family members, babies born, things like that. It's most people don't just wake up one morning and decide, hey, I'm gonna get a security system in my house, right?
That's right. Yeah. So do you think that there's an opportunity for the dealer to be successful kind of educating this newer generation when they're going in, and they specifically, like, how do they navigate that so that they can best protect the premises? Because when something does go wrong, often it does come back to the integrator, and it's like, why didn't I have more coverage, or what's the situation with this? And how do they navigate that with that new buyer?
Well, I think it's understanding kind of where they're coming from, where they're at first, and what are you looking for in a security system, asking some questions to understand what it is that they're looking for and why. But then I still think it's important to do that walkthrough in the house, and do they have pets? Do they have a finished basement that maybe you need flood protection? Are there new kids in the family? And you want to talk about life safety sensors and the upstairs bedrooms, things like that. So,
yeah, still giving the expertise, but maybe going in with a bit more of an open-ended question first of what their expectations are ahead of time before you just kind of steamroll the meeting with what they need.
Yeah, I think I think most people still would appreciate, your insight and your wisdom, but it's just not, it's not coming at it from this is what you need and that's all you need and I know the answers and you don't kind of approach.
Yeah. And that's true. Like anytime I would go in and it would be someone who's older than me by, we'll say 30 plus years, I'd go in and if I asked any kind of open-ended questions about what the expectations might be or why they want it, well, you're the expert, you tell me. And it's that separate attitude, right? You just come in here, tell me what I need, tell me what it's going to cost, and I'll decide who's cheapest at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think things have changed with the internet and the availability of information is just so much easier, right? So for me growing up, I've had access to the internet pretty much my whole adult life, so I can go and research and find out a whole bunch of information before somebody ever comes to my house. Whereas, with my parents' generation, that wasn't really an option. So that was your only means of, you were relying on experts to tell you what you needed and what your options were, right?
Yeah, now they're more or less just bridging the gap or giving an opinion to contrast what they've already kind of educated themselves on. So it's a different kind of mindset. So with all that being said, what's the best way for dealers going in to kind of set themselves apart and differentiate themselves kind of in this market?
Honestly, this is it maybe seems like a simple answer, but I think, having that customer first mindset and customer service approach, be on time, be presentable, be a nice person when you're in the house, and then just ask questions, understand, what their family looks like, what their schedule, what other, pets or kids they may have in the house, things like that. And I think that honestly goes a long way to differentiating yourself, because there's lots of people that don't take pride in those things.
No, absolutely. And everybody's met somebody like that and had a service person in their home at some point that they're like, ugh, don't be that guy. Are there any specific technologies or trends that you think that dealers should be paying more attention to in general? Yeah,
I mean, I think definitely video is going to, I think, continue to grow and become a bigger piece of the pie, and different technologies around that, video monitoring, video alarm verification, things like that, I think are going to become more and more important, as well as kind of the AI aspect of that, right? So the analytics piece, using video cameras for, detection of events and things like that, I think are going to be more and more important going forward.
Do you think that video monitoring will grow in any sort of meaningful way in a residential market, or just maybe the video verification with like image motions or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure that you're going to have, let's say 24/7 video monitoring happening in the residential space, at least in any kind of, volume, maybe from the really high end. But I do think they're video alarm verification, things that are still, let's say, affordable for an average homeowner. I think things like that will continue to grow. We're seeing legislation in certain jurisdictions where verification is required, and that can be video or other things depending on where we're talking about. But I think, yes, I do think that type of offering will become more and more important.
Do the end users on the Total Connect platform have the opportunity to verify alarms through the app right now?
Yeah, so on our Pro Series platform, we offer what's called motion viewers. So with those, when there is an alarm event, the motion viewer will actually record a 10-second video clip.
Okay.
So that way, when, let's say, one of your station operators is calling in, the end user can see that video and determine if it's a legitimate threat, or maybe somebody forgot the code and took a little bit too long and it's not, and they can say, hey, no, this isn't a real alarm, please cancel it. Or there's somebody in the house that shouldn't be there, and they can verify it with the station. So yeah. Do those videos get sent to the operators at the monitoring station as well, or is that a possibility? Not right now. It's something that's being looked at, but as of right now, it's just to the end user. They can get that video, and at least when the station's calling in, they can make that confirmation or. Yeah, residential is so much more tricky when it comes to things like privacy and it's motion detectors in the home. That Yeah, I think that's one of the nice things with us being able to integrate our software and hardware. It makes it easy to kind of offer some ways around those type of privacy things, by, let's say, the motion viewer, for example, it only activates when there's a real alarm. So, it's basically just doing its thing, quietly in the background. And then when there's an actual alarm, that's the only time a video clip is actually being recorded.
I wonder if there's something to that where the end user could get the video first and then choose to escalate it to the monitoring station where they have, proper dispatch numbers for, and maybe more of a credible response as opposed to an end user contacting the authorities too, especially where we're actively doing video monitoring, because everybody wants to limit false alarms. Yep. So you definitely don't want to get all those 5 p.m. false alarms and 6 a.m. false alarms that typically come through. But if it goes to the end user first, they see that clip and they're like, oh my goodness, like that's definitely a real alarm, and then escalating that to somebody who can dispatch in that manner. Yeah,
so we, along the same line, we actually just recently launched a new service called Alarm Cancel Verify. So that's it's leveraging APIs between our AlarmNet platform as well as the monitoring stations that we work with. So Alarm Cancel Verify basically allows the end user to get a notification in their Total Connect app, and they can either cancel or verify the alarm, and then that gets pushed right through to the station. So kind of what you're saying, the idea there is to, eliminate kind of some of those nuisance alarms and get them canceled directly in the Total Connect app and take some of the load off the monitoring station operators. They don't have to make that call because they're just going to get that signal that gets canceled before they ever make that call.
Yeah, because the operator time is everything in this industry right now. Yep. Everybody's trying to eliminate as much of that overhead cost as possible and kind of, I guess, using a lot more AI to drive that by not having human beings doing a lot of the work, even the call outs that are happening. Like, we don't approach it with that model. We kind of still use people for all of that outbound calling and all of that inbound answering services and stuff. And I don't foresee that changing, but the bulk of monitoring stations is trying to keep costs where they are trying to kind of cut down on that as much as they can, keep people off the phones and keep them available to handle alarms as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a challenge. It's hard with all monitoring stations, but those efficiency type things and trying to help both the stations and the dealers make their lives easier are something that we're focused on. So Alarm Cancel Verify is the first of those APIs that we've launched, and we've got a few more in the works that we'll talk about as they come out in the next months and
nothing
quarters.
You're allowed to share today?
No, unfortunately, I can't.
Too bad.
Can't yet, but keep your eyes open, and we'll share them when they're ready.
No, that's good. Exciting stuff, though, for sure. All the innovations that Resideo comes out with, because they're so balanced across the hardware and software platform, is really a good thing for dealers to consider for a product choice, because it's a one-stop shop for everything that they need for the home automation side, the home security side, video, and then for the software for their clients to use it, all at a very strong price point for them to be able to put a decent margin on and market themselves properly with. So it's a strong partnership. The thing I want to kind of go back to is we started to talk a little bit about that Canassa Next Gen thing. You yourself are a volunteer with Canassa, right?
Yeah, I'm on the Central Ontario Council. Yep. Okay,
so can you talk a little bit about the role that Canassa has in our industry for those who maybe aren't as familiar with it?
Yeah, so I mean, Canassa is advocating in general for the industry. They host a number of different events throughout the year to kind of bring the industry together. They have their big trade shows, smaller regional events. And then really it's just bringing the industry together, and there's some resources as well that they offer to the members, contracts and things like that you can get through the Canassa website. But yeah, I've been on the council for I think maybe 6 years now, and
almost your whole career with Resideo.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's good.
It's been a great experience. It's it's a good opportunity to meet others that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise interacted with. So I definitely recommend, if you're not already part of Canassa, to take a look at it and talk to somebody in your region on a council maybe, and understand a little bit better about what it's all about.
I think that's something that's really slept on, is the ability to connect with other people in the industry, because we're so much more collaborative in this security space than in most other sectors.
Agreed.
And you can kind of go out and talk to somebody and almost be mentored, even though they're your competition. That a lot of times they'll be very prepared to kind of impart, wisdom and things that they've done right and things that they've done wrong. And you don't really see that a lot in other sectors, I find.
No, I agree with you on that. I think you're right. Most people are pretty friendly in the industry. Even sometimes when they're very direct competitors in the same region, they're still willing to share a little bit and talk to others and help them out. And I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but I think some of those smaller regional events, it's one of those things that maybe some people don't know about that are happening, but there's a lot of good educational events or even just social events in the regional councils put on. So definitely that'd be one thing I would kind of advocate for taking a look at and maybe trying to attend those if you're looking to get engaged a little bit more.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a huge value to them to be involved with stuff like that, even if they're not necessarily a CANASA member, but just being able to connect with those people. But definitely encourage being a member, being part of that community. So it's a non-profit organization dedicated to helping the industry and furthering it. So,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Speaking of events, you're going to the golf tournament tomorrow. Yep. You're excited about that?
Yeah, no, it should be a fun day. That's another CANASA event. Great opportunity.
Yeah, we're going to be down there. We'll be sponsoring a hole.
That's awesome.
We decided to do a little bit of a giveaway, so that's going to be fun for some of the people coming by. And this will be after this. Will get aired well after that golf event, but we'll make sure that we do other giveaways at future golf events as well. But it's really good to get out there and just kind of connect with people and see what other people are doing and how they're making out. So
how have you guys found being part of CANASA? And
it's been a positive experience. CANASA is definitely a strong resource, even for a wholesale monitoring station like us, just to kind of be able to connect with other people in the same type of way, even for the social components of it. And as far as CANASA goes, like, they have resources specifically for monitoring stations, like global numbers to understand who to contact in specific districts or regions for authorities and stuff like that. So if we weren't a part of CANASA, we'd definitely be missing out on some pretty important aspects of this industry.
That's great. Yeah, no, I agree. It's an important thing to be part of and try to participate in the best you can.
One thing we kind of want to touch on a little bit is kind of our part in that as a wholesale monitoring station and how we fit into that dealer ecosystem through the supply chain. And from your experience, like, is there anything that monitoring stations should be doing to better strengthen that ecosystem of that dealer network through the supply chain, through the installation service, and through support for those dealers, and then monitoring them and being trusted with that customer information?
Yeah, I mean, I think the basics obviously are, first and foremost important. Obviously handling alarms in a timely manner and being responsive and friendly with your dealer's customers. I think that's probably when I do hear complaints about the monitoring stations, those are kind of usually what it comes down to. But then in terms of like moving forward, I think leveraging technology, whether that's some of the stuff you guys are doing around video is awesome, and I think that's certainly helps dealers and allows them to offer new services. And then, working with manufacturers as well to leverage any of the kind of efficiency stuff that they are offering, things like, our alarm cancel verify or other stuff that, we're looking
just
at
a feature list and making sure that you can offer whatever it is that the manufacturers have kind of put out to their dealers as a tool. Yeah,
I mean, I think, we're offering a number of these APIs, but obviously they're not useful unless the monitoring stations actually implement them. So we're trying to partner with the monitoring stations and educate them on the benefits for you guys, for example, as well as, what the benefit would be to their dealers. And I think, we all have to work together to try to make things easier for the dealers at the end of the day, because ultimately they're the lifeblood of the industry. Without dealers, we don't have none of us are
we're irrelevant. Yeah. No, that's a fact.
Yeah. So what are you like from a efficiency and video and things like that standpoint? Like, what are you guys seeing that dealers have been looking for or asking for?
Honestly, every time I discuss with a dealer about video monitoring, I feel like they're very on board with the idea, but I feel like there's a strong lack of understanding on how to implement and what's safe and stable. And it's also a completely different set of price points than they're used to with wholesale alarm monitoring. Like it's a next echelon up. But the dealers that have kind of seized the advantage of it have found that it's a very easily sold tool that, honestly, if you kind of market it the correct way, you don't have a problem selling it. And the attrition, really, from what we've seen so far, we've been doing this for about 5 years now for the video monitoring. It's not really any different than alarm monitoring, short of maybe construction sites where there's a finite amount of time that they'll be utilizing the service. But a lot of times they'll take it and move it to the next site and the next site and the next site. So really, it's not a cancel. It's just a relocation.
Right.
But there's a lot that we kind of have available to offer them for advice and to further their understanding on how to sell it and what it can do. Because further to your point of what you mentioned earlier, video is going to continue to overtake the market. I don't think it'll, at least in the foreseeable future, replace the traditional burglar alarm system just for the cost component of it and how much more scalable a traditional burglar alarm system might be. But on the video side, I could see it overtake the effective component in anything relating to commercial. I think that it's the way to go, because you see something happening live on the camera, the authorities treat it completely differently than they do when you're getting multiple zones and alarm, even when it's multiple zones. Like they treat it very differently as far as a priority goes. And we've seen huge success with our catch rate when it comes to video. And I think ultimately a lot of the people that our mutual dealers are in this for is to help people. Like that's what we want to do. And they want to see their systems be effective and maintain a positive reputation. Nothing hurts more than when your system is either done right or wrong, but it fails in some manner because the police didn't go, or they went, but it was an hour later, or whatever sort of circumstance that's somewhat outside their control happened that for whatever reason, the burglar alarm system wasn't the right fit. But a video system where it's AI driven and we're getting those events and we could rely on things like private security reasonably and safely, you know, for officer safety too as well. We've seen that it's a much stronger platform to be able to offer. And yes, it's at a higher price point, but really what you're selling to your customer is a lot higher of a probability of success.
Right. Do you find that with those dealers that you kind of onboard, let's say, and they don't have that track record in that video surveillance, at least monitor video surveillance, like there's a big education component? Yeah, and a lot of dealers too, like even the ones that do cameras more regularly, a lot of it is put in for, you know, after the fact type video, like where it recorded and there's your recording and you can do with that what you can. But a lot of dealers that don't necessarily do a lot in the camera space, where they mainly do, you know, systems that average in size for about 8 to 10 cameras, and they're not used to large scale deployments where you're monitoring the entire perimeter and you're talking about specialized technology like thermometry or radar or anything like that. They're kind of adding on to that service, and they sometimes kind of see that as outside their wheelhouse, so they don't want to touch it, because everything in our industry has been so crazy for 5 years for busyness that to wrap their head around something new is already a challenge, and then to implement it and support it and feel stable in doing that, that's where the challenge lies. So it's definitely not that they can't do it, and it's not that they wouldn't be successful. It's just even having the opportunity to kind of get into it is really the biggest barrier that I see. So every time I talk to them, it's like the same conversation, like, man, I really need to get into that. I really need to see what this video monitoring thing's about. Like, I really see the potential. But then you offer them, you know, we could educate you, we could show you how it's done and give you the full price breakdown and understand how to sell it. And then silence. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the time it's a bit of a timing thing, right? It might be that the right opportunity comes along and they reach back out to you because they trust you as kind of that expert in that area, and it might not be a now thing. And
right.
I find the same thing. There's dealers that I've talked to a year ago or 6 months ago, and the timing's just not right for them to kind of make a change, and then something else happens, and it's building that relationship and
keeping the door open, as it were. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I totally respect that, and I'm not knocking them for not taking the time, because I get what it's like when your whole day is putting out fires all day long, every day. It's really easy to not take the time to try and tackle something new. Totally get that.
Yeah, I mean, many of the dealers that we work with are, they're small businesses, right? And they at the end of the day, they got to do the things that they need to do to keep the lights on and run their business. So it's hard sometimes to devote the time to training and whatnot.
That's just it. And the way that I see it is they really have to look at investing in their business in that type of way, because it's kind of like, I'm too busy to take the time to invest into this, but if I were to do so, I would free up so much more time because my margins would increase. I could hire more people. I could do so. It's a tough transition for them.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. It's a really tricky balance, and I think many of our dealers, they started as 1 and 2 man operations, and they were maybe the technical expert, and it's hard to kind of take yourself out of that role and then go to actually doing more management type
1,000%. They're so used to kind of just switching hats all day long and just doing everything themselves, and totally respect that 100%. But you will reach a certain kind of plateau where you can't grow past that point, and you may not understand why when you're in it, because like you put on 10 accounts and you lose 10 accounts, and you put on 15 accounts and you lose 10 accounts, and then it's kind of that same back and forth where you're not really growing year over year, but you're solid busy, booked out all the time. That's where you need to have more people to free up more of your time. And if you're kind of asking yourself, well, do we have the resources to be able to afford additional staff for this purpose, you may need to evaluate, what's my pricing strategy? What are my margins? Is there anything I could offer that's higher margins that, would be equivalent workload? So if you're not making monthly RMR on it, because that's the lifeblood of our industry, is subscription-based models. And a lot of things are switching to kind of a subscription model, like all the softwares, everything. I read a thing where you could DoorDash your food down in the States and pay for equal payments for your burrito. So, I mean, if we're getting into that space, then it's easier than it's ever been to sell something that's going to carry some sort of monthly cost, but at the same time, people's tolerance for those monthly costs also gets lower. So as soon as things are kind of tighter budgeting wise, something's got to go, and they'll pick something. But the same amount of margin that they make on one burglar alarm account for a year, they'll make in a month on video. So I'm looking at the time investment of installing these 8 cameras, and that might be 30 hours for somebody 1 week that they install this 8-channel camera system, and it's done, and you walk away and you warranty it, and hopefully you made some money on the job, but that's it. There's no monthly. In most cases. Sometimes it's cloud-based, like some of what Resideo offers, where there's some small margin of RMR over time for storing recordings and things like that. But nothing like significant that it's going to make you get out there and be like, this is what I want to sell, because it works really well and I'm going to make some good money from it. And video monitoring really fits that model. So if they could just get a few of them done, so they see the comfort that I already know how to install cameras, just show me coverage wise what I can do with those cameras and what you recommend if I'm doing this length of fence line, and here's the compound that it's going to be, and what do you recommend, and where's the limitations, and just so they can understand how to explain that to the customer. They get a few of those under their belt, and then they'll start to see the value, because now that same client base, like you picture a small dealer that has 100 accounts, there's lots of them out there in Atlantic Canada that kind of fit that quota, somewhere between 1 and 500 accounts, and they get 10 video monitoring accounts, and it's like, whew, I just doubled my business, but I've only been installing for 2 months for this. That's huge. I think it's definitely, like on the video side, there's a little bit more pushback on the recurring revenue, just because it really hasn't been, historically at least, that's not been a component of it. It's mostly been, like you said, you put in an NVR with 4 cameras or 8 cameras, and like maybe there's a warranty component, but other than that, you just you make your money up front and you walk away. Right? Versus
I think the guys that have been in the alarm space kind of know that recurring revenue business, and they see the benefit of it, so they're maybe a little more receptive. But even there, it's
there's a barrier.
Yeah.
There's a barrier. I think it's because they don't see the service as something tangible. But doing this for as long as I have, when you're sending after the fact video and you're sending these reports of the activity that was on site and that we had to dispatch or that we were able to deter through audio talk down or whatever, you send that to your end user and they're going to see the value in that service.
Right.
And that's why the attrition, I think, is pretty low for it, is because with a burglar alarm system, it's almost like insurance. Like they pay it every month and it's a relatively low cost for them to pay, but they don't really see the value unless they have a break-in. And lots of dealers will have one of those customers that, I don't see the value in this. Like, why am I paying you for this? And they don't see it. They don't understand the activity that they could be having if the premises wasn't protected. But with video, like, there's been tons of times where we've sent reports for the amount of alarm traffic we've had where they're like, ooh, there was 30 people on my site last night. Like, I had no idea. Car dealerships and things like that where they're open compounds are especially, like, they love it. I had one car dealership through a dealer that the dealer told me that they were so happy with the service because they didn't want us to do audio talk down when people came on the lot. They just wanted us to send the report. And I was like, okay, that's weird. But if we see something criminal, we'll dispatch. But if we just see somebody kind of doing tire kicking, we'll leave them alone. And the reason that he wanted that is he would keep those reports and he would see who was on his site that night. And then if they showed back up to his business, he's like, this guy's serious. He was here last night at 11 o'clock and he was I know what car he was looking at. Yeah. And he would use that as part of
more like a business tool.
Wow, and I mean, I can't speak to an increase in close rate for him, but I just picture like the untapped potential of video monitoring that we haven't even gotten into yet of things that we could evaluate down the line. So it's an easy sell.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. I think there's a lot of more business applications that video can help, unlock, and I think that's definitely part of the future.
I really hope that we get more opportunities with some of the Resideo cameras in the video monitoring space in the future to have like a direct integration because there's a lot of manufacturers kind of moving into that space. They're racing right now, trying to see who can do it best.
Yep.
And I find, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Resideo's been more poignant at sending those alerts to the end user thus far. Like it just bings your app and then you can check and see if it's Greg or it's whoever.
Yep.
But if in the commercial space, that's something that you guys are ever looking to do, it's probably not a big leap or a big step to get that integrated with a few different smaller central stations that, could receive those video alerts and give a very strong purpose to those dealers to use that equipment over something else because it's all part of that same platform.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I'm sure that the smart engineers that we have on the video side are looking at all those use cases and working towards some good solutions for you guys.
No, that's really awesome to hear. That's really good. Oh, speaking again on the monitoring station side, I have a vested interest in that for obvious reasons. But is there anything you can shed light on for me personally that monitoring stations you've seen do really well that you could recommend that we kind of implement if we're not already?
Monitoring station side is not my 100% expertise, but I would say, obviously delivering good service, answering calls in a timely manner, making sure your operators are friendly with the end users, things like that. And then going back again, the technology piece, I think, looking at things like Alarm Cancel Verify and other API integrations that make the dealers' lives a little bit easier are definitely things I would recommend looking at.
What advice would you give to an alarm dealer just starting out today if they're evaluating a product line and making a decision on who to use and why?
I think the first piece is like for any dealer starting out today is, identify what your niche is and what part of the market you want to go after, because there's different things that you can do, whether you're going to focus more on residential or commercial. I think that's important.
I think a lot of dealers, like, they make that mistake where they'll just take any customer because,
be anything to everyone,
especially early on, because you're so focused on like need to build like a clientele, and you're not going to turn away work. Nobody's saying that, but you definitely have to know who you're marketing to and who it is that you're talking to and trying to sell to if you're going to be successful. What looks right to one end user won't necessarily look right to the other, and it's not about necessarily right and wrong. It's just their perception of what they're getting with that service.
Yeah. So I think identifying kind of who your target market is and what you want to focus on is important, because that's ultimately going to help, drive what you need in terms of a partner to help you deliver on that market. And then from there, I think it's important to look at the big picture and all the different aspects of a potential partner, right? So obviously there's, if you're an alarm dealer, there's the hardware piece of it. Is it a reliable product? Is it something your clients are going to be happy to see on their wall? Does it look nice? Those kind of things. And then there's the software side of things, right? Is there a good back end infrastructure that's easy for me to use, easy for me to manage my accounts, set up new accounts? And is the end user interface easy from an app perspective, from a web perspective? Is my end user going to be happy using this? Is it simple and clean and modern looking? And then I think kind of one of the more lost things is like, what other value added services can maybe the manufacturer offer? Do they have a program that helps you with your marketing, rebate, co-op, things like that? I think are not naturally the things you think about when you're evaluating a potential manufacturer.
Still thinking like a buyer, really, is you're thinking, well, that costs this and that costs that, and that's who I'm going to deal with, and
and I think if you're new to the industry and especially if you're not used to the recurring revenue model, like looking at hardware alone doesn't really tell the whole picture, because if you're paying, a really low price for the hardware, but your recurring costs, for example, are way higher, then that's not really. You're not comparing apples to apples, let's just say. So I think it's just looking at that whole value proposition.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And do you think that somebody breaking into the industry would have better luck going after commercial versus residential, or vice versa?
I mean, I think residential market is certainly it's a competitive market, and if you are going to go after that market as kind of your core focus, you have to really be very focused on it, because the numbers are a little bit different, and there's different segments to the residential market, right? There's kind of the more average home, and then there's the high end, which I feel like are kind of two different markets. But yes, to answer your question, I think there's a lot of good opportunity in the SMB space that is probably a little bit untapped, and it's a good niche to kind of go after for a new dealer starting out.
Do you find that the attrition rates lower with commercial versus residential, or do you find it more or less equal?
I don't know that I've actually seen from our side specifically the difference in attrition rates, but I think anecdotally I would say it probably is a little bit lower. I mean, like to your point earlier, there's some hard requirements in many cases that these businesses need to have security systems.
Right.
Oftentimes they're going to buy the system versus kind of call it a rent to own or lease type model.
No leasing type thing typically.
As long as the system's doing its job and, then there's no issues, they're usually pretty happy to just continue on and use the system as long as they need it.
All right, that makes sense. What makes Resideo a good fit for somebody starting out in the alarm industry today?
Yeah, so I think it's there's a few different components to it, right? So I think we make good hardware solutions, right? So we have a nice alarm panel that goes on the wall, whether that's an all-in-one or a hybrid product. It's pretty easy for a technician to learn and install those products, which is important. Obviously, we talked about some of the challenges with getting technicians, so making their lives easier and making sure they're
impactful.
They're efficient, I think is really important. And then it's tying in the software that goes along with that, whether that's the end user side with Total Connect or AlarmNet. There's some really good integrations there that also make it easy for dealers to set up new accounts. They can manage their existing accounts and see what they've got with our Insights platform. And then I guess to layer on top of that, the final piece of the equation is we offer our First Alert dealer program, which provides marketing support, financial aspects like rebates and co-op money, and then kind of another way of bringing dealers together in the industry. We offer we have regional events, so we have a couple events in Canada every year, and then we have our big Connect conference down in the U.S. In kind of the fall time frame. So that's a really great event and good way for dealers to learn from others from across North America and hear what others are doing that's working and what's not working, and it ends up being a lot of sessions of dealers actually presenting to other dealers, not as much of Resideo talking about what's so great about us, but a dealer talking about this is how I went about marketing cameras, for example, or
this is where I found success with this, and this is where I found it challenging, and that's actually super valuable. You have 2 of those a year in Canada, you said?
Yeah, so we just we held an event in Toronto and Quebec City this year. So we usually do those in the spring, and then the big Connect conference down in the U.S. in the fall. So
and you said, was that closed to First Alert dealers specifically?
Yeah, so that's dealers that are part of that program and choose to kind of work with us on a more closer basis. I think that's for dealers that really want to build their offering around Resideo. That's kind of an additional piece that we offer for those customers.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. That's really awesome. I have a signature closing question. So I'm going to let you kind of say your piece into the camera here. And you got 30 seconds to speak to our dealer network across North America and give them any comment, advice, question, whatever you want to say to them.
Yeah, so I would just say if you're looking for a partner and you're looking for a solution where we're bringing together both hardware and software, as well as some of the financial and marketing elements together, I think Resideo is a great option. Please reach out. We're happy to chat.
No, that's great. Really appreciate you joining us today, Nathan. Hopefully we can have you on again in the future after some of those new camera features come down the line, and
we'd love to.
Can talk about some more great stuff coming from Resideo.
Sounds good.
Thanks again.